Welcome to Get On With It, Inspiration for Life and Leadership. I'm your host, Sue MacArthur, President of Strategic Talent Management. We've all met them, the people who have a presence and a unique point of view that make us want to lean in and say, tell me more. In this podcast, we celebrate these people and provide a platform through which they can share their insights. Whether you lead a company, a community organization, or just your own life, we offer you these moments of clarity, hope, and inspiration. So let's get on with it. In this episode, I want to have a conversation that's one I think a lot of people need right now, because this isn't just about how we work, it's about how we live. We're operating in a world where busy has become the default. Calendars are packed, inboxes are overflowing, and yet, despite all of that activity, so many people feel behind and overwhelmed. And for many of us, the problem isn't capability, it's complexity. Our guest today has built his work around challenging that. Andrew Mellen, often called the most organized man in America, is a best-selling author, speaker, and expert on organization, productivity, and simplicity. But what makes his work different is this. He's not just helping people organize their stuff. He's helping them rethink how they make decisions, how they manage their time, and how they design their lives. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sue. It's great to be here.
Before we get into the work itself, I'd love to understand how you got here, because this isn't something that I imagine many people just stumble into. Every expert I've known has a moment or a series of moments that led them to their work. What was going on in your life that first pulled you toward organization and simplicity?
Yeah, so there are, I suppose, two pivotal moments. The first one was, my first career was in the theater as an actor originally, then a director, producer, administrator. I ran several theaters on the East Coast and the West Coast in New York and Seattle. I got laid off from a theater in Seattle, Washington, and as I was making my way back east, I got a gig co-producing an award ceremony at the Kennedy Center. One of our awardees was a Nobel Peace Prize winner based in New York. I went to his office to get a bunch of photographs so that I could put together a slideshow. And in the process of doing so, his wife and he asked me, would I like to organize their photographs for them? So I was planning to move back to the city. It was great to be able to come back to New York with a gig, and a rather prestigious gig, right? Creating a comprehensive photographic archive for a Nobel Peace Prize winner. So I was supposed to go to work on December 20th, 1996. The day before I was supposed to go to work, phone rang. Something unexpected has happened. They need to travel. Let's reschedule for January. January, the phone rang, rescheduled for February, March, they said, when we're ready to proceed, we'll get back in touch with you. So I don't go to work for them, but in those 4 months, I believe that I am going to work for them. So I tell every human being that I meet, I've got this great gig. I'm going to create a comprehensive photographic archive for a Nobel Peace Prize winner. A friend that I'm doing some copy editing work at Scholastic refers me to her accountant. The accountant, I build a filing system for the accountant. Accountant starts referring her clients to me. So people literally show up on my doorstep with duffel bags full of receipts. Letters from the IRS. They haven't filed their taxes in 5 years. They say, like, I'm freaked out. I don't want to go to jail. And I'm also terrified to even open the mail. I'm completely frozen. Can you make sense out of this before something catastrophic happens? So I organize their files. I put it in QuickBooks, give it to the accountant. The accountant files their taxes. And they say, oh my God, you're a genius. You saved my life. And they tell all their friends, you'll never believe it. I gave this guy a pile of garbage. He turned it into my tax returns. He's a genius. And inevitably they would say, who is he? I need that exact skill set. So I was still looking for administrative work in the theater while this was pickup work for me. And I just started working as a direct client, direct service provider to clients doing this work. And the second pivotal moment was I had just directed a play off Broadway that was very successful artistically, but it was a miserable experience for me artistically. Personally, it was just awful. Actors were a pain in the butt. It was just not fun. And so I remember also standing on my stoop in New York and talking to a friend and saying, at this point, I I'm going to put the theater on a shelf and I'm just going to go all in on this organizing thing and see how far I can take it. So those are really the two pivotal moments. The first one was based on my extensive improv background in the theater. Yes, and right at that
Mm,
moment, I could have said, no, no, I don't want to create this comprehensive photographic archive for you. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm just looking for theater work. But I said yes. And that opened up the door. And then the second yes was, I'm getting such great feedback from my clients. I'm seeing the impact. And if I could let go of the concept that as an artist, there's only one way to participate in the world, if I think about really what I've always been trained to do is creatively solve problems as quickly as possible with the least amount of friction as possible. Sometimes those were aesthetic problems, and this was more mechanical problems, but it was basically the same skill set. If I could uh, adapt my own mindset to expand to allow that to be possible, then
mm,
I had no resistance. It was curious. Many of my friends who were artists, when I started to do this work, said, what are you doing? You're so good at what you do. How could you walk away from that and do this other thing that seems not corporate, but certainly far more businessy than arty?
mm,
And how could you do that? And typically, of course, it comes with that projection of, I could never do that. And it's a curious thing, right? When we zoom out and talk about what we're going to talk about, so often I think one of those limiting beliefs is because I can't imagine me doing it, I can't imagine anybody doing it, or I can't imagine there being a viable solution because it doesn't fit within my existing rubric or the way that I'm already arranging my life and my circumstances. So given that I see those barriers, how could there be a solution? Because I just keep banging my head against the wall and nothing's changing. There must be no viable solution because I can't imagine it.
mm. I heard an interesting line, I think in a TV show recently, and it stuck with me. We too often put the excuse before we think about the opportunity. And it sounds like that was the case here,
Yeah,
is you skipped past the excuses that we often jump to and just focused on the opportunity.
exactly. A mentor told me many, many years ago, inside every disappointment is the seed of an equal or greater opportunity. And in the
Mm,
moment, we often don't see the opportunity, we just see the disappointment. And it has proven to be true consistently in my life. And so every time I feel thwarted or in a tight spot, I try to zoom out, breathe, zoom out, and remember what Skip taught me, which was inside every disappointment, the seed of an equal greater opportunity. If I can just find it, if I can allow it to percolate up and see it,
mm,
then there's a way out, rather a way through and a way out, rather than I I am painted into a corner. Seldom. I mean,
mhm.
in fact, I don't speak in absolutes, and I would say I've probably never been painted into a corner, even if it has felt like it in the moment.
All right. I know that you've written 3 books. Tell me about them and what you were hoping to accomplish in writing them.
Well, my first book was on Stuff Your Life, which was really, I mean, the work began, I was a direct client service provider, right?
Hmm.
Unstuff Your Life was an extension of my B2C work, my direct to consumer work, and it was clear that um, the way to scale my business was what wasn't of interest to me was having a bunch of mini me's that I trained and then had to manage. I don't love
Mm.
managing people. I like directing people, but I don't like managing them.
Big
So
difference.
that was not a good business model for me, was to scale the business by just having lots of little people and taking a percentage of their income to create my own revenue. I would rather have a team that supports me and have me be the sole subject matter expert. Not only because I don't want to manage people, but also because I trust my own decisions because of the experience that I've accumulated doing this work. I don't necessarily trust other people to be in the field making the same kinds of choices that I would be making with a client. And I don't want to
Hmm.
have to deal with dismantling a poor choice it's better. I can stand behind my own choices, but I don't want to have to stand behind somebody else's choices that I don't agree with, but now they're in place. So anyway,
Hmm.
so the only way to scale my business was a one to many, rather than a many to one, in essence, right?
Hmm.
Or a many to many. So getting on stages and getting the book out there, because also, without sounding arrogant or egotistical, I'm not inexpensive at this point. So a
Hmm.
lot of people couldn't hire me, nor do I necessarily want to be flying all over the world doing private direct client services.
Hmm.
I, I'm happy to get on a plane and go anywhere and be on a stage talking to 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 people. But to be in one person's home, even if they were paying me $20,000 for the engagement, I'd rather somebody pay me $20,000 to be on a stage for an hour and then be able to go to my hotel room and be quiet. So
Right.
the book was part of that. What is the methodology that I use that is a combination of SOPs, standard operating procedures, and intuition that allows me to
Hmm.
impact my customers and my clients in such a profound and sustainable way? How do I take that, codify it, and put it into a book so that people who couldn't work with me for whatever reason could still benefit from the experience of an adjacent working with me? And so Unstuff Your Life in particular is a very methodical how-to book. I literally instruct the reader, do this, set the book down, go do that, and then come back, pick up the book, and keep going. So that, because also when I was looking at other organizing books in the marketplace when I wrote Unstuff Your Life, a lot of them described what organization looked like. But to your point, there was no how there. So it was like, make this happen, go. And if you
Right.
are disorganized, you're scratching your head thinking, well, I get what it's supposed to look like. How do I go from where I am now to the miracle of organization you've just described in detail to me? You've left out 17 breadcrumbs between here and there. And so I wrote the
Right.
book that was specifically breadcrumb, 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 breadcrumb.
That's great.
And
No
then
magic wand required.
yeah, and then my second book is really, it's a Kindle single. It solved a very specific problem, which was moving house or moving office, right? It's the most organized man in America's guide to moving. So it literally is a small book that is just from 3 months before you start the move until a week after the move, what to do methodically each step of the way. And it comes with a comprehensive checklist so that nothing is left behind, literally and figuratively. And then the third book, as you referenced, right, is Calling BS on Busy, which for more than 10 years, I would go into corporate settings, and the only book that I had was a B2C book. So they would
Mm.
graciously buy the book to give it to their employees. But often I was there for productivity and simplicity, not necessarily organization. So I really wanted the time management version of Unstuff Your Life to be in people's hands so that we could address, in this case of Calling BS I'm Busy, the 8 deadly time thieves: interruptions, overcommitting, poor planning, meetings, emails, social media, multitasking, and procrastination. So typically somebody is
Wow.
struggling with one or more of those time thieves. And again, I wanted to give people methodical, simple, and concrete steps that they could take to neutralize all of those thieves from stealing their time. Time is a non-renewable resource, right? We
Hmm.
bank money, we don't bank time. The clock resets itself every day. And I think the average adult tells 200 lies a day. And one of those lies that we're telling ourselves is, I'm going to make up that lost time, or I know a shortcut, or I know a hack. But the
Mm.
reality is that once we've spent that time, we will never get it back. And so I'm on a mission to help people really reclaim that time before they lose it, because I don't want anybody get to the end of this experience and say, oh, I need a do-over. I didn't realize that the way that I was spending my time got me here, and I'm not ready to be done, but apparently I've run out of time. I would really like to do everything I can to preemptively avoid that being the outcome for anyone.
Okay, so let's dive into something. Let's get to the work.
Sure.
And here's something that I think will resonate immediately. You've built your reputation around this calling BS on busy. What are people getting wrong when it comes to time and productivity? What do you see are the most common things that we're just getting it wrong?
So a couple of things are we either over or underestimate how long something's going to take. And the cure for that is using a timer. We have a story that says, I don't have enough time to start that, so I won't. Because in our mind, we think it's going to take, we need a big block of unstructured time to be able to even initiate something. So we will avoid
Guilty.
it. Right.
Guilty.
Right? Or we think, oh, that'll take me no time at all. And it's not important enough for me to do now. So I'll return to it later when I have more free time and I'll just knock it out then because it's so easy to do. And they're two sides of the same coin, underestimating and overestimating. And the cure for that is using a timer. And some people balk at that. They find it in their mind, their mindset, their story is that it will be constrictive and it will be controlling. But the beautiful thing about the timer is that it takes all of the scorekeeping and executive functioning away from us as taskers. So the timer will tell you when 15 minutes is elapsed. You don't need to be dedicating a certain amount of bandwidth monitoring. How long have I been working on this? It feels like I've been working on this for a long time. I should really stop and check my watch, right? Anything that's going to interrupt us being in, as they say, flow state means that then we have to get back into flow state. So the longer we can stay there within our attention bandwidth, and if you're neurodivergent and you have difficulty staying focused for long periods of time, you can get a tremendous amount done in as few as 3, 5, or 7 minutes of focused work. So again, I want to poke a hole in one of those 200 lies that say, I don't have enough time to address this. The timer really makes it all possible. And it doesn't really matter, again, for how long you set the timer. You could start with 5 minutes at a time. It doesn't need, you don't need a big block of time to start it. The beautiful thing is also that then we shift our goals from being narrative-based goals to being math-based goals. So instead of saying, I'm going to work on this until I'm finished, we say, I'm going to work on this for 15 minutes. And the goal is to work uninterrupted for 15 minutes. I don't care whether you get the entire document written or you get the first paragraph written. That is on some level immaterial. The goal was to work uninterrupted, without interruptions or distractions, multitasking, procrastination, and to just stay in the zone for that block of time. And that is how we build on our success, right? Failure breeds failure, success breeds success. The more we can poke holes in those stories that say there isn't enough time, or I can't dedicate the time to this now, the more we can poke holes in that, the quicker we will get about the business of addressing the things that are stacking up around us. The other thing is the prioritizing things and going for low-hanging fruit when you are capable of going deep. You will ultimately get all of the work done. But sometimes because we think we're in that state of overwhelm, the ability to discern urgent from important, and the Eisenhower grid is certainly useful, right? Urgent, not important, urgent and important, important, not urgent, neither important nor urgent. That is useful. And even for me, I've cooked it down into something even simpler, which is really almost always, unless the house is literally on fire, urgent is almost always someone else's agenda, and important is our own. Urgent, someone else's agenda, important, our own. And so being able to remain aligned with what is important to us and letting the noise of busy and urgency quiet down and get out of our focus is really another place that people get tripped up. They get busy on the gerbil wheel of trying to knock off all the little stuff to buy themselves the big block of time. And by the time they get there, they're exhausted. They're bandwidth has been compromised. They're not capable of in those moments of doing the deep, big work. And then they tell
Mhm.
themselves one of their 200 lies. Well, tomorrow I'll start the day off fresh and I'll be ready to address it. And then they get involved in all of those little fires that crop up through the day. They spend all their time running around putting them out, get to the end of the day and they're exhausted again thinking, well, I guess tomorrow will be different, but tomorrow won't be different without a different plan.
Mm. I think a lot of people wear this busy business as kind of a badge of honor.
Yes.
Like it's proof that they're doing something
Yeah,
right.
I'm very
And then,
important because I'm so busy.
right. But it sounds like in reality, it's really a sign that something isn't working.
Yeah. I mean, I really appreciate that Warren Buffett said the difference between successful and really successful people is the ability to say no. And he
Mhm.
also said that busy is the new stupid. So
Oh,
I lean on both of those when I'm teaching folks and coaching them because I think, I mean, it's a little glib, right? Busy is the new stupid, but it also, there is a kernel of truth there that
mm,
it's a dumbing down of our capacity to get lost in the swamp of busy. And likewise, right, the idea that there are so many demands on your time. If you really know what's important to you, it becomes easier with practice. It does take practice to say no. The glass half empty says that leans into a FOMO mindset, right? Where I'm missing something. There's something really exciting going on over here that I'm missing because I'm saying no. The glass half full side of it is I'm doubling down on something I'm already committed to that I've already checked in and is aligned with my values. This is just a distraction. If it's really important, it'll either percolate back up or I will park it someplace and then return to it. But mostly it's just noise. I mean, we all get those emails that promise us some sort of something, right?
mm,
I'm going to help you with your SEO, or I'm going to help you be recognized by AI bots, or I'm going to help you promote your book. I didn't go soliciting any of those things. When I am ready to promote my book, I will go in search of it. So the fact that somebody found me on LinkedIn and sent me a message, they aren't automatically entitled to my time. And we have to learn that boundary so that we don't feel like jerks when we say no or no thank you or just ignore it. The fact that somebody, I mean, if you think about it, I, I lived in New York for many, many years. If somebody came up to me on a subway platform and said, "Hey, do you have a minute?" My typical response would be, "I really don't. Thank you. I wish you a lot of luck.
mhm,
I don't have any time right now." And that just is the general mode of moving through the city.
mhm.
You don't want to be a dick, and at the same time, you don't want to give somebody your time because you don't. It's not available to give them away.
Mhm.
So having those clear boundaries, and yet I think in this virtual world of social media and email, we often feel like the polite thing to do is at least send a no or no thank you. They're not automatically entitled to your time, particularly if they're not people that you have a relationship with.
Right, right. And I certainly fall into that trap. A lot of people have tried to get organized. They buy a planner, they download an app, they set up a system, and then real life happens and it all falls apart. Why does this happen?
Mm. A couple of reasons. One is the system in and of itself is probably too complex to sustain or manage. I think if we are trying to solve a problem, there's the micro solution and there's the macro solution. The
Mhm,
micro is the one off, as if this is an isolated occurrence that will never occur again. If it is an issue or a task that is going to recur, we need an SOP for it. We need a standard operating procedure so that
mhm,
once we have the recipe, we can follow the recipe. We don't have to keep reinventing the recipe. Uh, but I think people, when they are feeling overwhelmed and, for lack of a better term, desperate, stressed
mhm,
out, there's an external grasping that something outside of me is the solution. I am broken or damaged or flawed or incapable to, I think in your introduction you talked about that, right? We've got capacity and capability. Most
Mhm.
people, if they got up in the morning, got themselves dressed, fed themselves, and managed to go off to either work or a volunteer activity, have the capacity, the capability of managing their own time. They might not have the capacity yet. They might not have developed it. It's the same thing if you go into a gym. You're not going to pick up 350 pounds and bench press it the first time you walk into the gym. You're going to pick up 10 pounds and you're going to think, oh my gosh, this was heavier than I thought it was. But if you keep doing it day after day, that compound interest experience will build capacity. It's the same thing with organization. If you find yourself in a pickle and your thought is, everything when we start to speak in absolutes, right? One of our 200 lies.
Mhm.
Everything is a mess. I have to fix it all right now. You're
Mhm.
looking for a global solution, and you're likely to bring a system in that is larger and more complex than needed to solve the problem or the issue. So
Mhm.
we've in essence grabbed a circular saw for something that we would need a nail file for. And the circular saw just requires a lot more maintenance than a nail
Mhm.
file. So and then we run out of bandwidth. It's not solving the problem. And then we think that it's either us. It's a combo. We probably talk crap to ourselves and say, clearly I'm incapable of doing this, and this is a crappy system, right?
Mhm.
We blame the system is faulty, and I suck. And so it's a double lose. And then we're back to not only zero, but we're negative 15 because we're talking crap to ourselves. So we're
Right.
a bit gun shy about trying another one. I've tried everything. Nothing works. I didn't get born with the organizing gene. So we go to that place mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And from there, it's hard to attempt a simple solution that might solve the problem, right? Like I keep double booking myself. What is the solution to that? It isn't a, a calendar with 97 bells and whistles. It's when you say to me, hey, Andrew, can you be on this podcast on this date? Me, before I respond, saying, hey, Sue, thank you so much for the invitation. Let me look at my calendar and I will get back to you. And then I
Mhm.
look at my calendar. If the time is open, I book the appointment. I could even book it as a hold, which is something that I will do. I will hold it, which I haven't committed to it yet, but now it's on the calendar so that if something else comes in, I know, oh, I've already given this time as a possibility to Sue.
Mhm.
So I can't book something else there until she either releases it or confirms it. So now it's on my calendar. It's a simple adjustment, and
Mhm.
it's inserting that sounds like a great idea. Give me 24 hours and I'll get back to you. Now, if somebody wants to write me a check for $100,000, I'm going to say, give me 5 minutes and I'll pull up my calendar right now. But if it's just
Mhm.
something that is of interest, it does align with my values, but it isn't a high value, to borrow from our friend Mark LeBlanc, right? It isn't a high value activity or opportunity. 24 hours seems like a sufficient turnaround time for me to table it, be
Mhm.
thoughtful about looking at my calendar and trying to figure out if it fits into the rest of the week and the schedule, and then coming back with a thoughtful reply.
In my experience, a lot of these tools and you know, calendars and all of the things, they are so complicated because they're trying to be everything to everyone in every possible situation. And the only time I've ever been able to make any of it successful is to pick and choose the things that are relevant to me and things that I know I can commit to. Do you have any other things that can be helpful in making a system for staying organized
I
more
mean,
sustainable?
I keep it really simple. I'm going to
Hmm.
share the organizational triangle with you, which is really about stuff, but can
Okay.
also be applied to other things. So we'll start with that, and then we'll talk about the calendar. So the organizational triangle is really one home for everything, like with like, something in, something out. The first two legs are how we get organized. One home for everything and like with like. Everything has one home, only one home. Where you keep your keys can be different from where I keep my keys. Your keys have a home, my keys have a home. They can only ever be one of two places, in our hand unlocking something or in its home. When we apply this rule, you can find anything in 30 seconds or less. Something in, something out means all like objects live together, not most of them. So instead of keeping most of the tools in the toolbox in the garage, but keeping the Phillips head screwdriver in the junk drawer in the kitchen, because we've got a story that says, the knobs on these cabinets are always a little loose. And I don't want to go all the way out to the garage to get that screwdriver. I want it right at my fingertips. So I'm going to keep it in the junk drawer, which on the surface sounds perfectly logical, except you're not going to remember it. You're going to go out to the toolbox looking for the Phillips head screwdriver. When you don't find it there, you might even go to the hardware store and buy another one. And then 3 weeks later, when you're digging around in the junk drawer, you find that screwdriver, and your first thought is, who's the idiot who left it here? And your second one is one of your 200 lies. Oh, that was me. This was my great time management hack. And the third one is another one of your 200 lies. Now that I remember this, I will never forget it. And I promise you, once you close that drawer in 30 seconds, you will have forgotten your amazing time management hack. You'll go back out to the garage looking for that screwdriver again. And that loop continues to feed back on itself. So the simplest thing is everything has one home and all of the siblings live together. And that way you will find anything in 30 seconds or less. The third leg of the triangle, something in, something out, is how we stay organized. So there are no rules about what enough is. Your physical spaces inform that for you. So you have a 400 square foot library in your home. You can have more books than somebody who lives in a 400 square foot apartment with one bookshelf. But once you have all of your shelves filled with books, you either need to let a book go or build another library. I mean, the space does an excellent job, albeit quietly, of providing feedback. There is no more room here for you to shove something else in it. And also, when we think about consumption, without getting too far into socioeconomics,
Right.
if you have ever said there aren't enough hours in a day, why would you spend any of this precious non-renewable resource, time, consuming things you do not need, instead of redirecting that time into something that you've already determined is aligned with your values, right? If you want to be writing the great American novel, or you want to be coaching your kids' little league or soccer team, or you want to be volunteering at your church or your synagogue or your mosque, or you want to be, going to a yoga class or planning a family trip, why would you not take that time that you would be killing at the mall or flipping through a catalog and redirect it towards something that you've already determined is of higher value for you? It's because in the moment you've discounted that time. You don't view the time as a precious resource. You're like, well, it's 5 minutes. What could I possibly do in 5 minutes? I'm just killing a few minutes in between calls, and it's a way for me to let off steam. One of our 200 lies. So that the organizational triangle is all about organization. When we think about calling BS on busy and the math side of it, we really want to focus in again on our values and what is important for us to do, so that we are making strategic choices rather than knee-jerk reactions like, I just want things to get quiet and then I'll be able to think, right? It's the reverse. It's doing the important things and finding the way, and again, even if it's in 5 minutes. And so for me, I use very simple tools. I use Post-its to write things down when I need to record them on a call. And those Post-its then get harvested and put into some sort of an action item, whether it goes onto a specific to-do list. I have to-do lists for different silos or different categories of activities. And I use a calendar. So I don't have a robust, dynamic, Baroque system that I have to maintain. My calendar is my Bible. I return to the calendar. If it isn't on the calendar, it's not going to happen. And the to-do lists are not time management tools. They're basically parking lots where I can put things so I don't forget them. And then I will prioritize them, harvest them, and put them on my calendar. So,
Mm,
and the reason that I have multiple to-do lists is because going to the cardiologist shouldn't be competing with going to the dry cleaners. They both might be ones on my list, but they are not equally important. So my health and wellness to-do list is where I would go first before I would go to household chores. Right? So it's the most important household chore is to go pick up the dry cleaning or take out the recycling or clean the gutters. But that should never be competing for my attention with going to the cardiologist or preparing a proposal for a client. Right? They shouldn't be vying for first position on the same list.
mm, that makes sense. So it sounds like time management is really about decision making and where really deciding where you're going to spend your time.
Yes.
What are the biggest time leaks that you see consistently where
Well,
people are just really wasting it?
right. We'll go back to the eight deadlies, right? It's
Mhm.
interruptions. And if we think about them on that spectrum from external to internal, right? We've got interruptions, meetings, email, social media on the one side of the spectrum, which are really external things demanding our attention. And then we've got poor planning, multitasking, and procrastination. So social media is on that list for the externals. That
Mhm.
the internals are really multitasking, poor planning, and procrastination. Those are the ones that don't involve anybody else necessarily, right? They're our relationship to time. And then the others are about external forces. And so, again, having clear boundaries, recognizing that no could be a complete sentence. And I learned this again from somebody else a long time ago. The only thing better than good news is bad news fast. So that if the answer is no, tell me no now. We do this horrible thing to each other where we say, I'll get back to you in 48 hours. And we think by saying that to you that it buys me the time to let you down easy because
Mm,
48 hours have elapsed. So by the time I come back to you and say, oh, Sue, I really tried to make this work. There's just no way that I can do it. But I knew as soon as you asked me, oh, that's never going to happen.
right.
And it would be so much kinder to you and so much less drag on me to in the moment say, Sue, sounds like a great idea. It's never, I don't have the bandwidth for it. So it's not going to
Mhm.
happen. Let you go find the yes instead of killing 48 of your hours because you're thinking, oh, Andrew's trying to rearrange his schedule to accommodate my request. I'm not doing that at all. I'm just letting 48 hours burn so that when I come back and drop the bomb, you feel less upset in my mind, right? It's all about manipulation. It's not about honesty or care or kindness. And it would be so much more kind and direct to just tell you, Sue, not going to happen. You need to
Mhm.
go ask another one of our colleagues or one of our friends. I support you in finding the yes. I'm not the yes for you.
Mhm. Well, you give people false hope. They may be getting excited about something, or
Ooh, Andrew's
they
going to pull a
are
rabbit out of his
already
hat and make this work for me, right? Like
right,
I don't have to go looking any further. Andrew's going to make it happen for me.
right, and they're rearranging things perhaps to fit you in, and yes, it's not kind.
No, it is not. It's the opposite. And again, it's one of those things about people pleasing
Mm,
that is just one of our 200 lies, right? Like I'm letting you off easy. No, I'm wasting your time and I'm being disrespectful. It's that we have that common cultural trope or way of thinking of politeness is kindness. And there's certainly a way to be respectful and still say no,
mhm,
but to deny somebody the freedom to make their own choices and to hold them hostage, there's nothing kind about it. You could masquerade and say that you're being polite, but that would definitely go on one of your 200 lies for that day.
mhm. I'm going to start paying more attention to the 200 lies.
Yeah. And now, in framing that, right, I want to be super clear. It's never intended to be a gotcha exercise as we pay attention to how we bend the truth or how out of integrity we are during the day. It's just an opportunity for us to look at, oh, I wanted to make it easier for so and so to hear this, so I bent the truth instead of just telling them the direct truth because I didn't think they could handle it, and I thought that they would. The reality is that I would be afraid that you were going to judge me or withhold something or do something to me. So it's really a self-centered, selfish thing to manipulate you. It's all about me and my ego or what I want or don't want rather than actual service because I should be willing. And if we have a relationship, I should we be willing to tell you the truth and allow the truth to sit between us without spin, right? I don't need to make it better than it is, and I also don't need to make it worse than it is. We don't need to catastrophize it, but we also don't need to fluff it. It just is what it is. I can't do that thing for you by Thursday of this week. It's not possible given what my schedule is. It's a no. It doesn't mean you suck or your idea has no merit or I don't like you or this is revenge for 3 months ago when I asked you for something and you couldn't do it for me. So I've been waiting for the opportunity to say no to you. All of that is garbage and a waste of time. It's really just, I can't accommodate it. It doesn't have anything to do with my affection for you or my care for you or my concern for the project. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to talk more about the idea of simplicity.
Sure.
And I know that this is something you spend a lot of time on. Why is simplicity so hard for us?
Well, for all of those things that we've already talked about, I think we are suspicious of simple. I think that simple gets a bad rap. We think that simple is stupid or not creative or
Or
not
cheating?
cheating, possibly. That it's devoid of sophistication, too
Mm,
easy. It's not about cutting corners. It's about removing every point of friction between you and the outcome. That I would really like us to reframe simplicity as that being the definition. We're looking for that straightest path from here to there with the fewest speed bumps, bottlenecks, points of friction, and the practice is focusing our attention on that analysis devoid of investment in being right as much as solving the problem. So it doesn't matter who comes up with the right idea. That is, again, something that I learned in theater and collaborating was even as the director, I didn't care it could be the prop person's idea. If it was the strongest artistic choice, it was the choice that we were going to make. It didn't have to be, I'm the director, so the only good ideas in the room are coming from me. That is preposterous. It's the same thing in the business world. We're trying to solve the problem. So that's where true collaboration happens. There might be a hierarchy as far as compensation goes and responsibility, but if everybody is qualified to be on the team, everybody's qualified to solve the problem. And so we're looking for the strongest solution regardless of its source. And I think again we have attachment to, I can't let your idea be the right choice because you report to somebody who reports to somebody who reports to me, and I won't look good if you are the person who solved a problem that confounded me. I mean, it's all ego-based garbage, and
mhm.
we would be idiots if we said that those things weren't at play in human relationships. So
Right.
when we think about simplicity, it's just like, what can we scrape away so that we have the cleanest path forward?
Mhm. Something I learned from my father that just popped into my head. He worked his entire career in state government. And there were two things he taught me. One is it's easier to beg forgiveness than ask permission. But the one that's relevant to this conversation is it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit.
Right.
And that has stuck with me my whole life and is a way for me to kind of get through all of that noise of this is what we should do and this is who we should be listening to.
A hundred
So
percent. I think I'm not a fan of the first one. I really think it's a
it's
little
gotten me in
I
trouble
don't
more
love
than
the idea.
once.
I mean, I get it, and the glibness of I don't really want people stepping all over me and then begging for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I'd prefer to be the kind of person that you could ask permission from, and I'm not going to unreasonably deny the permission. So, I mean, partly we're looking at the culture, and I understand certainly dealing with governments,
Mm-hmm.
the complexity, the unnecessary complexity of some of those structures,
Right.
because I've done a lot of work with, I mean, training and coaching at the federal level as well as the state and the county and the city level as well. And some of those structures are quite complex and overly baroque. And at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I don't really want to encourage people to just run slipshod over each other and oh, I'll just ask for forgiveness later after I pummel you,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be inclined to do it for me. But just
Right.
not
Yeah.
to poo-poo your dad. I'm
But
sure he was a lovely
but they're
man.
kind of two sides of the same coin. Is and what you said, you'd like to think that you'd be somebody that people could ask permission of. It's kind of like what we were talking about of just letting go and letting other people take the credit.
Right.
It's kind of just the flip side of that coin.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean,
let's
so much. I just want to insert this one
no, it's
thing, and that is so much of this, right? There's again, the micro and the macro. The micro is how we govern ourselves and the choices that we are making individually. And unless you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur with a small team, chances are there's also a culture that needs to be addressed so that the
mhm,
culture is one, how we're governing ourselves is also influencing the larger culture so that it is a culture that doesn't condone interruptions, right? Unless you're coming to
mhm,
tell me that the building is literally on fire, I want you to be thoughtful about, do I need to interrupt Andrew for this, or could I stack 4 or 5 things up and then ask him in one block of time the 4 things that I needed, right? Is it, if I can't do any work without a solution to this one problem, then it's worth interrupting me. But if it is
mhm,
just, oh, I would like to know the answer to this, can you have some self-governance enough to park at some place and say, I'm going to book a 4 o'clock appointment with him. I'm going to go through all of these things at that time. I'm going to let him
mhm,
do his work, and I'm going to find something else to do until I can get clarity on these other things. And that's a cultural wide thing, right? That we don't have a culture where we work that thinks interruptions are okay, that we hey, do you have a minute? Because this is the thing
mhm,
about interruptions. On average, we're interrupted every 10 minutes, particularly by communication, a mode of
mhm.
communication. And on average, it takes 23 minutes to recover from one of those interruptions. So it
Oh
could
boy.
mean 2 interruptions, 2 recoveries is as much as an hour lost, except that in that hour you might have been interrupted 4 more times. So now we're interrupt stacking because we're
Mhm,
trying to recover and we've been interrupted more times than we can even rebound. And then we get to the end of our day and we think, oh my gosh, I've been crazy busy all day. I got nothing done. Now I'm going to stay late for a couple of extra hours, get caught up. Nobody's going to bother me. I can really focus in and do my real work. That is not a recipe for sustainability. You can't close the gap with your own personal time because there isn't enough time in the day to do the work that you've been tasked with, right? You can't come
mhm,
in on a Saturday of like, I'm just going to come in for 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday morning so that I prevent the dumpster fire that was last week from happening again next week. We
mhm.
can't keep expecting workers to close the gap with their own personal time.
Right. And I think part of one thing that I see quite often with small business owners in particular is everything has to go through them. And I think that is a huge has a huge impact on their ability to manage their time and to really concentrate on the overall strategy and the big picture and growing the business. And one thing that helps in that is to create a culture in which people feel empowered to make certain decisions themselves and take action without the owner's involvement, and also knowing what are the triggers that this has to be escalated to
Right.
the owner, as opposed to handled at a lower level. And we too often get bogged down in that.
Yeah. So going back to to-do lists and tasks,
Mm-hmm.
do it, delegate it, delete it. It's really
Mm-hmm.
one of those three flavors. If you are the only person who can do this, do it. If somebody
Mm-hmm.
else could do it and good enough is good enough, delegate it. And if
Mm-hmm.
nobody needs to do it, it's just like busy work. It would be a nice to have if there were nothing else vying for our attention, then,
Mm-hmm.
but most of those things could be struck off the to-do list. I tell people all the time, ones, twos, and threes are really where we're living, right? The most important, the second important, and the third important. Anything that's a 4 or 5 on your to-do list should automatically be deleted because they are never going to rise to the level of a 1, 2, or 3. If it's that low of priority now, there will always be new ones, twos, and threes that are coming onto your to-do list. So they're just taking up space. They're making you, they're nagging at you back here of these unfinished tasks, but they don't have any value. So all they do is deplete your energy, make you feel crappy, like, oh my God, I can never get these things off my list. But you also have no intention of ever dedicating adequate time to them because they're not going to move the needle in any significant way. So you would be, again, doing yourself a favor to just strike them. The quality of your life will not be negatively impacted by removing them from your to-do list, even though that FOMO thing again kicks up and says, but what if? Like, what if that was the $1 million idea? Well, if it was the $1 million idea, chances are it wasn't a 5 sitting at the bottom of your list.
True. True. I've gotta get that, finish the book off the to-do list. So let's make this really practical. If
Sure.
someone listening wanted to get started this week on decluttering or simplifying, whether their time or their physical environment or whatever the case may be, if they want to create more clarity and space, what are 2 or 3 things that they can actually do right now to get started?
So there's two different ways that you can approach the project or the process. First of all, you're going to set a timer. You're going to figure out how long can I dedicate to this in one sitting. If you want to clean the garage on a Saturday, the brain science tells us, barring neurodivergency and ADHD or some attention deficit challenge, 15 minutes on the low end, 2 hours on the high end for us to do focused work. After 2 hours, we start to experience diminished returns. So you would be better off working in, I wouldn't necessarily call it a 2 hour sprint, but we'll call it a 2 hour sprint from 15 minutes to 2 hours. So set the timer for however long you think you can work, and then take a break and come back and set the timer again. So if you wanted to dedicate 8 hours in the garage, I would say 4 2 hour blocks, or again, chunk it up even more if 2 hours is not enough, is too long for you to stay focused. The
Mm-hmm.
alternative is set a timer for 5 minutes and go for low hanging fruit. And that means fold a load of laundry, clear off the kitchen counter, take out the recycling. Again, failure breeds failure, success breeds success. So we're just looking for win stacking. We're just looking to build some momentum. And it doesn't, on some level, the brain doesn't really discern big win from little win. Win is win. And so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter. It really depends on where your energy is at. Should you go big or go fast? You will still get to the same place. But I think sometimes people want to go big because they're, again, feeling overwhelmed or a little stressed out, but they're also a little puny and beat up. So in those moments, the better choice would be go fast, go fast, go fast. What can you do in a 5, 10, or 15-minute block of time that will build some momentum for you, but not exhaust you? Because what we don't want to have happen is for you to say, oh, I'm going to go in the garage for 2 hours. You set the timer for 2 hours. You're filthy. You're exhausted. The garage looks worse than when you started, and you leave the garage thinking, oh my God, this is impossible. There aren't enough hours in the day for me to deal with this. I suck. This sucks. I have to hire somebody, or I can't do this, right? We don't want anybody to get to that point. So
Mhm.
I would say pick, depending on your energy and your focus, your ability to focus, go big, go fast.
Mhm.
And then when we're thinking about categories, where are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck? Or where are you going to deal with something that you've been avoiding for the longest period of time? So if it's
Mhm.
filing an insurance claim or returning a phone call or making an appointment to take your car in for service, um, sometimes they're small in scope, but because they involve other people or they involve multiple parts, we have avoided them. And other things are, I have to hang up that hook in the garage. There's no barrier to you doing it. You have a hammer, you have the hook or the screwdriver and
Mhm.
the hook, or the drill and the screwdriver and the hook. So there's no, and it's already in the garage. So that again is a fast win for you, rather than I do need 15 minutes because I have to call Verizon and I'm likely to be on hold until I can get a human being. So I need a block of time to be able to do that. Then budget the adequate amount of time for it, rather than I'm just going to call and see how long it takes, and then you're watching the time elapse and you're like, "Oh, I got to hang up. Like I'm
Mhm.
still in queue." And I've wasted the 15 or the 22 minutes on the call. I have no resolution, and now I didn't do something else. So I'm
Mhm.
tired and I'm cranky. So I don't want to do anything else.
Right. I think sometimes too, the smartest thing we can do is find someone else who can do certain things for us, because not everything is a valuable use of our time. For example,
100%.
cleaning the house. Is that the most valuable use of a few hours on a precious weekend day off? Maybe not.
Right.
Or cleaning out the garage or whatever it may be. So I think part of this creating space in our lives needs to be recognizing when it's time to call someone else in to take care of it,
Right.
rather than holding on so tight to everything
I think
ourselves.
it returns to our values, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
get juice out of hanging the hook in the garage and you actually feel accomplished and your self esteem is elevated as a result of being self sufficient, then it isn't just the time money equation. But if you're neutral about, I don't need to do that, I'm just happy to have it done, right? Like, I don't need to be the executor of it. All I care is that by 5 o'clock today, it's completed. So I don't need to go to the grocery store. I'm happy to get on Instacart and place an order and have groceries delivered. And as long as they get here in the next 4.5 hours, yay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need to go to the grocery store. I could spend the 7 minutes placing the order and then redirect my time while I'm waiting for somebody to do the groceries. And I'm happy to reward them with a tip and pay any surcharge, because it's still, I did something that was worth $200 of billable time for me, instead of investing an hour and a half to go to the grocery store and run the errand. So if I
Mm-hmm.
paid somebody $25 an hour to do it, was a net gain of $150 that I made by delegating that to somebody else. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, again, if baking a birthday cake for your kid is juicy for you and you want to do it, there's no bakery in the world that you would go, even if you spent $400 on a birthday cake, that would feel as good as baking the cake, particularly if you wanted to bake the cake with the kid, right? I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
that's super juicy for you, then let's make sure that you have enough time to do it, rather than constantly picking up your phone, checking your email while you're supposedly baking the cake with the kid, because the kid is experiencing, oh, mommy's distracted. Mommy isn't really baking the cake. It feels like it's a burden for mommy to bake the cake because she really seems to be interested in her mobile phone,
Right.
right? So that we're
Right.
we're fully in whatever we're doing. I say all the time also, if what you want to do is lay in a hammock and read a book, it's a fine investment of your time if it feels good and it's valuable to you. It's not like we have to become tasking robots, to be productive. While we do have a finite amount of time, we do get to spend it as we choose. I just want it to be a mindful, clear decision. I'm taking the day to go walk on the beach and read a book. And there is
Mhm.
nothing more important. Again, probably unless somebody pinged me and said, hey, there's $100,000 speaking gig. If you can call this person back in the next 20 minutes, I might pause on the beach to make that phone call. But if somebody sent me an email saying, hey, I can't find the link to the replay page on a Saturday, that
Mhm.
can wait until Monday when the office is open. They already know. I've set up the boundaries so that they know there is no customer service on the weekend. So the fact
Mhm.
that they were looking for the link on a day that we're closed is not, it's not like too bad for them, but I have a boundary that I'm not going to provide customer service on a weekend. So on
Mhm.
Monday morning, they'll get the link.
Right. And I think those boundaries are part of what makes these things sustainable rather than just temporary resets. What are some other things that can help distinguish between this is something that I can maintain and that is sustainable for me versus this is something I'm going to try just quickly, but it's likely to disappear in the short term.
I think if we approach it in the same way we would approach an allergy test, right? Where we remove everything from our diet and we add things back in step by step, like, oh, is it dairy? No. Is it gluten? No. Is it
Mhm.
cruciferous vegetables? Like what's triggering the inflammation? So if we think about we're going to build some systems for ourselves. What can I consistently maintain? A calendar. Let's start with that. Can you just consistently make appointments with yourself, keep those appointments, whether they're external appointments or internal appointments, and let's build over the next 30 or 60 or 90 days that consistent habit. I was just in the gym this morning before our conversation, and I was doing an exercise that is a relatively new exercise to me, and I wanted to put another 5 pounds on the bar. And the guy who I'm working out with, he's my friend, but he's also more experienced I mean, he's not my trainer, but he's more experienced in the gym. He's like, you've got good form, but this is a new exercise. Why don't we just stay at the same weight so you can build some consistency and feel solid in the behavior, right? The impulse is like, I want to get bigger and stronger. Let's heap some more weight on it. And the tempered response is, why don't we just practice doing it consistently, successfully, with excellence? So it's the same
Right.
thing. Why don't we just move from my life is a dumpster fire and I'm late and disorganized to I consistently use my calendar to make appointments with myself and then to keep the appointments. And why don't we just try to do that before we then add on to that? And there's an app that will remind me, and then there's, something that'll sync my phone to my computer, so we don't overly complicate things
Mhm.
while we're trying to learn to walk and then trot and then run. Let's let's neutralize our ego enough to say, I'm building a new habit, I'm a beginner, so I'm going to
Mhm.
use training wheels to make sure that I stay stable and solid and build some consistency. It all comes back to build capacity. I'm perfectly
Mhm.
capable of doing it. Now I need the capacity to do it consistently. And only once that's a baseline. So, again, if we want to use another metaphor of like music, we lay down the baseline first before we start to put the melody on top of it. We're
Mhm.
consistently able to keep time, and then we're going to add a tune on top of it. But until we can keep the meter steady, we have no business going off into a melody or let alone a harmony, because we don't have a baseline to just understand this is 2 4 2 4 2 4,
Mhm.
and I can hold that line before I put something over it. It's the same thing with our time. If you can consistently keep appointments with yourself, and the key there is keeping them with yourself. because of our any of our people pleasing impulses, we're probably more likely to show up for other people because we've made the commitment, but we'll let the appointments that we've made with ourselves slide. Oh, I don't really feel like it, or I can do that tomorrow. I'll just drag it from today over to tomorrow. And then I'll just get lost in the day, right? I did the things that I was obligated to do that involved other people, but the rest of the stuff is fungible. I'll just drag it around. The more we
Hmm.
can lovingly support ourselves in, no, I dedicated the time to do this. There might be other things that are perhaps similarly important or maybe not important. If they're not more important, then I'm going to stick with this. I made the commitment to do it. I'm going to do it. Is that
Right.
does that
I,
useful? Make sense?
it is very useful. And I think this has been a really valuable and honest and important conversation. I think when things feel out of control, often people instinctively try to do more and push more and add more. But that simplicity, I think, is the piece that we're often missing. It's about the removing the friction and simplifying our decisions and figuring out the systems that actually support us in real life, not just the ideal version of it or what it means to somebody else.
Right. Yeah. I a couple of things that I'm thinking of. I have no problem with people leaving post-its around their house or their office to remind them of it. If we can let go, so the point of that is if we can let go of whatever perception we're concerned about other people judging us, if it works for you, then it works for you. And you don't have to explain it to anybody else. And you certainly don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be judged for what works for you. I direct myself often around the kitchen, and somebody watching me might think I'm crazy because I will literally say, let's open that drawer and pull out the spatula. Let's remember to close the drawer because I have a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to leave drawers open, thinking, not even thinking I'm going to get back in the drawer, just I got what I needed. I'm going to keep moving. And I have to remind myself, close the drawer, close the door, close the drawer, close the door. And so I will direct myself, oh, don't walk away, close the door because it isn't my first instinct or it isn't a hardwired response in me to close the door. But I also don't want to bang my head in it, which I have done when I left the door open. So I
Yeah.
manually adjust my own behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
if I was in the kitchen with somebody, they might think, "Oh my God, he's quite simple. He needs to boss himself around the kitchen or he's going to bang his head." I don't really care what
Mm-hmm.
somebody else thinks. It's a level of functionality that works for me. So letting go of that sense of being externally judged by other people for doing the practice that works for us. And the other thing that I wanted to share was brain science tells us that we can reboot our central nervous system in as few as 3 deep breaths. So that impulse of the day is getting away from me, I have to chase the day down, grab it, throw it to the ground and sit on its neck to get it to behave is
Mm-hmm.
a very real, like the fight or flight instinct, right? It is in us to like grab the day and control the day. But the reality is if we stop, open our hands and just take those 3 deep breaths, it helps us reset our central nervous system so that we can see the problem a bit more clearly and we aren't in that reactive mode, but we're more closely in an active or responsive mode where we're going to make better choices rather than in the just reacting to stimulus kind of animal level of functionality, right? We get to the higher levels of thought and analysis and strategy when we pause, reboot, and then observe and then make a choice rather than because the perception is like the tennis ball's flying at my face, but it isn't really. It's just it
Mm-hmm.
feels like that. So we want to bat the ball away, but it isn't actually flying at our face mostly.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is, but
Right.
not always.
Right.
A little reality check is helpful.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you. This was really practical and useful and certainly timely for me. Um, so I appreciate everything you've had to say. And to my listeners, if something in this conversation sparked reflection or something on which you need to take action, don't just let it sit there. Get on with it. It was so interesting talking with Andrew. I encourage you to check out his books, Unstuff Your Life, The Most Organized Man in America's Guide to Moving, and Calling BS on Busy. You'll thank me later. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Until next time.